Spike Lee has always started conversations and illustrated the often complicated ways that people relate to one another. He demonstrates this incredibly well in his 1989 drama/comedy film Do the Right Thing. Critics and audiences at the time claimed Lee was just an angry black man and claimed his film would provoke violence and riots and disrupt race relations, when really it would have been more accurate to realise that he was sad, observant, extremely realistic and empathetic. This analysis will cover the extract from the middle portion of the film, looking at the scenes ranging from "Fuck Frank Sinatra," then onto the racial stereotype scene, finally ending on the final scene where Mookie is returning from a delivery to go home to shower, in terms of looking at film form. When discussing film form, it's important to acknowledge its definition, to truly understand and apply it to a film analysis. Bordwell and Thompson defined film form as the ways parts work together to create an overall effect. They tell readers, artworks in all media ask us to pay attention, to anticipate upcoming events, to construct a whole out of parts, and to feel an emotional response to the pattern we help create. This is evident throughout Lee's Do the Right Thing, in which he sets the whole movie on one block in the district of Bedford-Stuyvesant within Brooklyn, New York, Lee's hometown. Lee places all of the characters strategically throughout the block in the background at all times. For example, when Mookie is walking home, returning from his pizza delivery, we see DeMea, the local drunk, standing to the front left of the shot. He isn't in focus, but he's the largest character in the shot. Then we see Radio Raheem leaving Sal's with his boombox and 2 slices of pizza, which he had ordered in the previous scene. Although Mookie doesn't actually interact with Radio Raheem or DeMea in the scene, we're still being subtly exposed to these characters, which instinctively gives us an emotional connection to these characters, ultimately making us feel real emotion and empathy when things happen to them, like when Radio Raheem ends up being brutally choked to death by Officer Long at the film's climax. Lee's use of film form through subtle repetition of characters in the background, and scenes to an extent, is strategic and wise, making audiences feel as though they're in the street with these characters on this hot day. When looking at narrative, in this extract, it starts with the scene in the pizzeria between Pino and Mookie. Mookie's confronting Pino about his use of casual racist slurs, and they discuss Pino's favourite actors, favourite basketball players, and they're all African Americans. Mookie points out to Pino that he thinks he wishes he was secretly African American, to which Pino laughs in his face because he's obviously realised the pattern that Mookie is pointing out, and I think he's quite embarrassed about that. His acting shows his visible uncomfortableness at the insinuation that he wishes to be African American. They start insulting each other with comments like "fuck Michael Jackson" and "fuck Frank Sinatra." This then leads us into a montage of clips with each character of a different ethnicity hurling racist, insulting stereotypes through a rant format. Pino and Mookie are the first 2 characters to speak in this scene. However, their words are more aimed at each other's racial identities rather than the specific individual that they're upset with. The comments made throughout the montage are very different to the comments that are made to each other's faces. For example, Mookie states, "pizza slinging, spaghetti bending, Luciano Pavarotti, non-singing motherfucker." Then Pino goes on to say other horribly offensive things such as fried chicken and biscuit eating, monkey, ape, big thigh, fast running, etc. And they use these slurs, but they're more targeted towards their race, not their actual characters and the issues that they're having with characters. I think Lee did this to point out that at the time it was a very hostile time. Everyone was in that state of hating on each other's races, and this whole montage shows every different race targeting each other when they're supposed to be a community living on one block together. This clip is key to understanding the positions of race and identity in the riot scene that plays at the end of Do the Right Thing. Lee works to summarize his position of the racial tensions in Brooklyn. Lee stated in an interview with CNN in 2009, "When I wrote the script, New York City was a very polarized city racially. I wanted to do a film that would try to show what was happening at the time. The montage of these racial slurs shows that the damage caused to Sal's famous pizzeria were not just a result from a misunderstanding between two characters due to their racial identities, but that the tensions existed between all of the members of the neighborhood all along. They just weren't expressed to each other's faces until a specific incident, Sal and Raheem's fight over Sal smashing Raheem's boombox, which provided the catalyst.
Lee uses his precise dialogue effectively and pairs it with a particular style of performance from his actors. He does this to highlight the strained relationship between the different communities who live in the neighborhood. Lee utilizes exaggerated and stereotypical accents native to New York City to showcase cultural differences between the characters of his film, which includes Italian, African, Korean, and Caucasian Americans. The actors deliver the dialogue in a way which can be interpreted as exaggerated in tone and style as heard in these clips.
Hey Mookie, forget about it.
Oh shit, let me check it out. That's the hype.
Lee uses this to convey the hostility between the different communities in the neighborhood. Characters are grouped together based off their ethnicities, preparing us for the conflict featured in the film's final act, an altercation between Sal and Raheem, where we see Sal's family defending him and Raheem's friends doing the same. In the extract, Raheem goes to Sal's restaurant and is refused service by Sal until he turns the music off. Lee highlights the importance of accent, slang, and style when it comes to community identity and how it defines and shapes us. Lee also expertly utilizes mise-en-scene in the film to subtly highlight several notions. A motif that is continuously featured throughout the film was the heat wave in the neighborhood. Lee used color psychology to make the audience feel hot like the characters on screen. Red is featured throughout the film and ignites a sense of heat on screen. Nearly every scene in the film has red featured in it. Tied in with the warm yellow lighting and sweat dripping off the actors' faces, the red through the film is used to create a vivid sense of setting and atmosphere, that of an unbearable heat wave. When it is hot, we tend to feel uneasy and stuck, which can be seen as a metaphor in the film reflecting the racial tensions of the neighborhood boiling to a point of disaster. However, society also associates red with feelings of blood, violence, rage, and danger, as discussed by David Robson for the BBC, who said, "Red can carry associations of aggression and dominance." The motif of red could have been Lee's way of foreshadowing the violent end to the film, Radio Raheem's death by the hands of the police. Music ultimately plays a major role in the film as an explicit sound motif. The main song featured throughout the film is Fight the Power by Public Enemy. Because of his attachment to his radio, Raheem's character is most closely associated with the song for two reasons. One, due to his radio endlessly playing it, and the other being the eventual meaning that the song has for him as a character in the film. The lyrics of the song say, "You've got to fight the powers that be," while Raheem gets into a fight over music, which then ultimately leads to him being unfairly killed by the police. The song was made for the film at Lee's request, and like the film, the song also faced controversy upon release at the time. Both the song and film reference and criticize famous pop culture figures. Public Enemy criticizes Elvis and John Wayne, while Mookie does the same to Frank Sinatra. The rivalry between Italian and African American pop culture icons provides us with a glimpse into the diversity of America and its communities. Loyalty to a particular artist also shows us the power of particular iconographics when it comes to community identity and a sense of belonging. Both Prince and Frank Sinatra surpassed their racial identities and have both become legends of contemporary pop culture. However, in the extract, we see Mookie and Pino protect their cultural identities, which ultimately signifies the growing hostility between Sal's family and Mookie's friends. In 1993, an article discussing research on culture and community by Stuart Hall described culture as a particular way of life which expresses certain meanings and values, not only in art and learning, but in ordinary behavior. The significance of music is also symbolized in Raheem's radio. Lee wanted to show us how music and art can unite groups of people and provide a sense of unity to a community. Both Pino and Mookie love Prince and Muhammad Ali, showing us how participating in culture can bring people together, or it can even bring people apart. Raheem's radio is a vital prop in the film. Not only does it play the song which encapsulates the struggle of African Americans in America, it also showcases the importance of music and art in an individual and group identity sense. Another prop that plays a major role in this extract as well is the knuckle rings that Raheem wears when he speaks to Mookie. This scene is a direct reference to the Charles Laughton directed 1955 classic The Night of the Hunter. In the 1955 film, the meaning behind the words love and hate represent notions of good and evil in the eyes of God. In Lee's film, we associate it to the foundations of racism, which is hate, and how to fight against it, with love. The knuckle rings and radio provide obvious visual motifs that is presented to us by the character who is most affected by their meanings, Rahim, who is eventually unfairly murdered by the police at the climax of the film. The character who monologues about how the power of love can defeat hatred is ultimately killed by hatred in the end. At first glance, the film portrays a comedic tone, sometimes even at the expense of the characters and their stereotypes. However, as the film progresses, we start to feel the dramatic weight of the film's meaning as we see the characters deal with race, violence, and law enforcement, which brings a dramatic and political tone to the film.
In Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, the style of cinematography is manipulated specifically to emphasize the racial tensions between the characters. In the selected shot, Lee visually portrays this and more through a diverse utilization of camera techniques, including camera angles, camera movements, and distance. Do the Right Thing depicts a heavy utilization of canted angles, typically used to display tension. Spike Lee plays on this effect as a means of visually expressing that there is something demented or dysfunctional about the relationship between the characters. Such technique can especially be observed during the encounter between Cell and Radio Rahim in Cell's pizza shop, in which the camera flip-flops between the two at slanted angles in order to express the differences present in their relationship. Breaking the fourth wall is a technique derived from theatre, involving the character talking to the camera directly as a means of producing an imaginary wall between the audience and the actors depicted in the shot. Whilst the employment of such technique is not present in majority of modern films, Spike Lee opposes the normality of film techniques, adopting it to break the continuity of the plot as well as a point-of-view shot, as a means of looking into each character's mindset. Such technique can be observed in the scene where Radio Rahim is conversing with Mookie, in which the camera moves so that Radio Rahim appears to be talking directly to the camera, whilst moving back to Mookie after the dialogue, depicting that he was actually talking to Mookie all along. This cleverly devised film technique aims to position the characters as if they are talking directly to the audience, allowing us to connect with Radio Rahim's belief of love and hate. Breaking the fourth wall can also be visualized during the racial stereotype scene. Whilst majority of the film attempts to cover up and hide racial tensions and anger possessed by various characters during the film, Spike Lee exposes the true emotions felt by each character through such technique. By shooting the shot this way, the scene depicted the characters extremely in your face, with close-ups highlighting the anger felt by each character. Such shot attempts to connect Spike Lee to the audience, allowing him to communicate a message to the audience about why racism still exists by the way he positions his camera. Film critic Gautam Ganasekaran saw the camera as a mirror, helping the audience to recognize their own grudges or opinions that they might consciously or unconsciously hold with the characters standing still like the audience, because they are unwilling to change their views and racist sentiments that they are so comfortable to keep inside. Movements of the camera also play an essential role in conveying the racial tension amongst characters. Lee allows a large number of the camera's movement to be rapid shot reverse shots, seen in the racial stereotype scene in particular. These fast-paced camera movements create a heightened sense of tension and confusion, the speed of the camera adding an edginess to the dialogue through which the audience learns that the characters allow their personal struggles to interfere with their judgment about other races. Spike Lee's editing style can arguably be regarded as one of the best of his time. Whilst Barry Alexander Brown is credited as the editor and Do the Right Thing, Spike Lee is very hands-on with the process, putting his provocative and bold stamp onto things in order to enhance the aesthetic of his highly praised film. In Do the Right Thing, Lee's strategic utilization of montages, a rapid editing technique that shows many images that are connected through cutting, can be viewed in many scenes. In the montage of racial slurs, the technique is paramount in allowing the movie's cultural analysis to be effective. By allowing a series of people to consequently make fun of other races, due to the audience's unfamiliarity of such provocativeness, Lee serves to make the audience feel severely uncomfortable, aiding the racial tension already illustrated in the film. As well as montages, Lee includes a series of continuous shots. One of these continuous shots can be observed in Mookie interacting with a series of characters as he makes his way towards his house. Lee utilizes such technique in order for viewers to recognize that they are moving through a narrative with specific plot points. Lee also utilizes a re-establishing shot, going from one character to another by backing away from one face and zooming in on the other. This can be observed after Mookie gets off the phone, allowing the camera to zoom into one of the Italian brothers picking it up straight after. This technique allows the transition to appear more smooth, allowing the overall movie to flow more effectively. Do the Right Thing was the finest, most controversial and discussed film of 1989, with Spike Lee's message still providing relevance in today's society.